Something is happening in Cleveland that nobody saw coming. The quarterback who lit up training camp, who analysts were already calling the future face of the franchise, just dropped a private revelation that could flip the NFL upside down. According to multiple insiders, Sanders has no plans to remain with the Browns, and the reason why will absolutely stun you. This isn't just another locker room argument or the usual rookie frustration about playing time. What Sanders just admitted signals a complete rupture between star player and organization, and the ripple effects? They stretch far beyond Cleveland, because the team already circling for his signature is one of the biggest franchises in football, the New York Giants. But before we get to that, you need to understand exactly what pushed Sanders to this breaking point. And once you hear the details, you'll realize this isn't just about football anymore. It's about betrayal, politics, and the collapse of trust at the very heart of an NFL team. The revelation didn't come in a press conference or a carefully worded statement. It came quietly, behind closed doors, after a routine Tuesday practice. According to sources close to the situation, Sanders sat down with people he trusts most and made it crystal clear: he's done with Cleveland. Those who were in the room describe him as calm, almost relieved, not angry, not emotional, but decisive. His words carried the weight of a man who had been keeping score for weeks, maybe months, and finally reached his breaking point. He reportedly told his circle that Kevin Stefanski's treatment of him had made continuing in Cleveland impossible. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment rant. Insiders stressed that Sanders' choice was deliberate, calculated, and thought through long before anyone outside the locker room suspected trouble. He'd played along, stayed professional, and given the coaching staff every chance to prove him wrong. Instead, every practice, every meeting, every subtle slight only confirmed what he already suspected: his future with the Browns had an expiration date. And when he finally spoke up, there was no room for misinterpretation. He didn't hedge his words. He didn't leave space for negotiation. Sanders made it clear he'd rather sit on the sidelines than continue pretending this situation could be fixed. But how did things get so toxic so quickly? To understand, you have to look at what Sanders walked into when he first arrived in Cleveland and the disrespect he faced from the moment he put on the uniform. When Sanders arrived in Cleveland, he expected what every rookie dreams of: a fair shot. He came in ready to compete, ready to learn, and ready to prove he could lead an NFL team. Instead, what he got was something entirely different: politics, favoritism, and a coaching staff that seemed determined to write him off before he even had a chance. By every measurable standard, Sanders was outperforming the veterans around him. His completion percentage was higher, his touchdown-to-interception ratio blew the competition away, his quarterback rating during scrimmages looked like something you'd expect from a seasoned starter, not a rookie. Yet somehow, none of it mattered. Kevin Stefanski made it painfully obvious where his loyalty stood. Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabrielle were given every opportunity, every critical rep, every chance to shine under pressure. Sanders? He was repeatedly sidelined, not for mistakes, not for poor play, but because the coaching staff never wanted him in those moments to begin with.
The 2-minute drills, arguably the most important test for a young quarterback, tell the story best. Sanders dominated in practice, but when it came time to run those scenarios, Stefanski kept him on the sidelines. No chance to lead, no chance to show poise in crunch time. Just a seat on the bench, while less effective quarterbacks stumbled through reps he had already earned. Teammates noticed. Offensive linemen quietly voiced confusion. Receivers openly questioned why the best arm on the roster wasn't getting the chance to prove himself. One defensive captain even confronted Stefanski directly, asking the question everyone was thinking: why aren't we playing our best quarterback? The answer? A vague speech about developmental timelines and earning opportunities. Translation: the decision was made long before Sanders even stepped on the field. And while all this played out in front of the team, the disrespect only grew worse behind closed doors. In meetings, Stefanski would shower Flacco with praise for his leadership and highlight Gabriel's understanding of the playbook. Sanders, who was not only executing plays better but flat out outperforming both of them, sat in silence while his achievements were ignored. This wasn't just bad coaching. To Sanders, it felt like psychological warfare, a clear message that no matter how well he played, the deck was stacked against him. And as all this played out in front of the team, the disrespect only grew worse behind closed doors. In meetings, Stefanski would shower Flacco with praise for his leadership and highlight Gabriel's understanding of the playbook. Sanders, who was not only executing plays better but flat out outperforming both of them, sat in silence while his achievements were ignored. This wasn't just bad coaching. To Sanders, it felt like psychological warfare, a clear message that no matter how well he played, the deck was stacked against him. And as the weeks went on, it became harder to ignore. But things didn't just stop there. The breaking point was coming, and it arrived in the red zone, where Sanders put on a display so undeniable that even his teammates knew something was seriously wrong with the way the coaches responded. By this point, it wasn't just Sanders who felt something was off. The entire locker room had started to split down the middle. Veterans who had been through years of quarterback drama in Cleveland could see the same story unfolding again: politics over performance. Receivers who had built instant chemistry with Sanders were baffled when he was left out of critical reps. Offensive linemen quietly wondered why they were protecting less mobile quarterbacks when the rookie behind them was the one making plays. Even the defense, usually the last to weigh in on quarterback debates, began murmuring that the coaching staff was sabotaging their best chance at winning. The tension finally boiled over when one of the team's defensive captains allegedly confronted Stefanski directly. His question was simple: why aren't we playing our best quarterback? The answer? A vague speech about trusting the process and waiting for the right moment. But inside that locker room, players weren't buying it anymore. Meetings only made things worse. Stefanski would point to Joe Flacco's veteran leadership or Dylan Gabriel's ability to understand the system, while Sanders sat quietly knowing he had outperformed both of them on the field. Film sessions became a running joke. Sanders' best throws overlooked, while the veterans' mediocre plays were treated like teaching moments. The players saw it and they didn't like it. Some even began privately siding with Sanders, telling him he had his back, acknowledging what everyone knew but nobody could say publicly: the best quarterback on the roster was being ignored on purpose. That kind of divide doesn't stay hidden for long. Every day, trust between the locker room and the coaching staff eroded just a little more. What started as whispers became frustration, and frustration was about to turn into open rebellion.
And then came the practice that changed everything. The moment Sanders proved beyond any doubt that he was the most talented quarterback in Cleveland. What happened next would leave the team stunned and Sanders ready to walk away for good. It happened during a red zone drill, the exact kind of scenario where a coach discovers whether his quarterback can thrive under pressure. Sanders took the field against Cleveland's starting defense, and what followed left teammates shaking their heads in disbelief. 7 consecutive passes, 7 straight touchdowns. Perfect reads, flawless execution, and throws that looked more like highlights than practice reps. The defense, one of the league's toughest units, couldn't stop him. Sanders wasn't just performing well, he was putting on a clinic. Then came the comparison. Joe Flacco stepped in next. 2 completions, followed by an interception. Dylan Gabriel went after that and failed to produce a single score. Side by side, the difference couldn't have been more obvious. Sanders had dominated. The veterans had stumbled. Everyone on the field expected the outcome to be clear. Sanders had earned the job, and the coaching staff couldn't deny it any longer. But what happened next left the entire locker room stunned. Stefanski announced that Flacco would be getting extended reps with the starters. Sanders, despite his flawless performance, would be sent back to scout team duties. For many players, that was the moment the mask came off. The favoritism wasn't subtle anymore.
It wasn't about development or patience or protecting a rookie. It was about politics, and Sanders knew it. Teammates immediately rallied around him, some openly questioning why the team was throwing away its best chance at winning. And for Sanders himself, that was the final straw. The message was loud and clear. No matter how much he proved himself, no matter how much better he played, he would never be given the chance he'd earned in Cleveland. That night, according to insiders, Sanders made his decision. He would not waste his career in an organization that refused to believe in him. From that point forward, he was done, and his inner circle began quietly exploring a future beyond the Browns. But if you think Sanders' frustration was the whole story, think again. Because while Cleveland was busy pushing him out, other franchises were already circling, and one of them, the New York Giants, saw the opportunity of a lifetime. The moment word leaked that Sanders was finished with Cleveland, phones around the league started buzzing. His representation didn't waste time. Quietly, they began reaching out, testing the waters, gauging interest from teams that might see what the Browns refused to, a generational quarterback ready to lead right now. And the response? Immediate. Multiple franchises signaled they'd be willing to move mountains to land him. Draft picks, veteran starters, even unprecedented rookie renegotiations were suddenly on the table. Teams understood talents like Sanders don't hit the trade market, especially not before taking a single regular season snap. Among all the suitors, one name rose above the rest: the New York Giants. For anyone paying attention, it wasn't hard to see why. Despite Daniel Jones's massive contract, the Giants front office has never been fully convinced he's their long-term answer. Add in his inconsistent play and recent injuries, and the situation screams opportunity. Sanders doesn't just fit their needs, he represents everything they've been missing.
But there's more. Insiders reveal that New York's offensive coordinator already has ties to Sanders' inner circle, going back to his college recruitment. Their offensive system, built on vertical passing concepts and designed quarterback runs, fits Sanders' skill set perfectly. It's almost as if he was made for their scheme. And make no mistake, the Giants aren't just interested, they're desperate. Reports suggest they're preparing a blockbuster package that could include multiple first-round picks, established starters, and potentially one of the most aggressive trade offers the league has ever seen for a rookie quarterback. If that sounds extreme, consider this. Sanders is more than a football player. He's marketable. He's a superstar in the making. And in a city like New York, his presence could transform not only the Giants' offense, but the entire franchise identity. Meanwhile, Cleveland continues to downplay the situation, acting as if everything is under control. But behind closed doors, league insiders say the gears are already turning. Trade talks aren't just rumors anymore, they're real. And once whispers about New York's interest reached fans, the reaction online turned into a frenzy that no team could ignore. The moment the Giants connection hit the rumor mill, the internet detonated. Within hours, hashtags calling for Sanders to New York were trending nationwide. Fans didn't wait for official news, they launched full-on recruitment campaigns. Highlight reels of his preseason dominance flooded social feeds. Fan-made graphics of Sanders in a New York uniform spread like wildfire. Comment sections, forums, and podcasts couldn't talk about anything else. Giants fans saw this as destiny. After years of struggling with inconsistency under center, the idea of a young, electric quarterback leading their offense felt like the start of a new era. They weren't just excited, they were united. Even former Giants players chimed in online, hinting that Sanders could be the missing piece. Meanwhile, Cleveland's fan base erupted into civil war. Half the city demanded Stefanski's immediate firing, furious that his ego might drive out the most talented quarterback they've had in decades. The other half clung to the hope that Sanders was just frustrated and that the organization could smooth things over. But deep down, everyone knew this wasn't just noise. Something was broken.
the Browns front office scrambled to control the narrative. Reports say owner Jimmy Haslam personally reached out to Sanders, promising him guaranteed playing time, offensive overhauls, even a new start within the team. But to those close to Sanders, it was already too late. Once trust is shattered, words can't fix it. What made it worse? The national media smelled blood in the water. Talk shows, sports radio, and TV panels hammered Cleveland's dysfunction nonstop. Every detail leaked out turned into another headline, another reason for fans to believe the franchise was on the brink of collapse. And while Cleveland was stuck in crisis mode, the Giants looked more and more like the only logical landing spot. Sanders had the talent, New York had the need, and the entire football world was watching the story unfold in real time. But behind the social media chaos and media frenzy, the consequences for Cleveland were only just beginning. Because losing Sanders wouldn't just hurt on the field, it threatened to shake the entire foundation of the franchise.
For the Browns, losing Sanders wouldn't just mean losing a quarterback. It would mean losing everything they'd built their future around. The financial impact alone is staggering. His draft selection had fueled a surge in season ticket sales, a spike in merchandise revenue, and new corporate partnerships built on the idea of Sanders as the face of the franchise. Now, all of that momentum risks collapsing overnight. Inside the building, the fracture is even deeper. Veterans who've been through countless rebuilds see this as the final straw. Some reportedly discussed refusing to play if Sanders were pushed out, an unheard-of level of revolt in an NFL locker room. Younger players who looked at Sanders as a leader have grown skeptical of whether this organization even values talent over politics. And then there's Stefanski. Once seen as a steadying presence in Cleveland, his reputation has imploded. To players, he now looks petty, insecure, and unwilling to adapt. To fans, he's the man who took the most exciting quarterback prospect in years and shoved him aside for the sake of his own system. To the front office, he's quickly becoming a liability they can't defend. Every hour that passes, his authority erodes further. But the damage doesn't stop at the locker room. Around the league, executives and agents are taking notes. The Browns are reinforcing their reputation as a franchise where young quarterbacks go to die, a place where dysfunction outweighs development. Free agents are already rumored to be reconsidering Cleveland as a destination, and upcoming draft prospects are quietly hoping their names don't get called by this team. This isn't just about one rookie being disrespected. It's about an entire organization being exposed. From ownership's inability to control the chaos, to a coaching staff stuck in outdated schemes, to a locker room that no longer trusts the people in charge. The Browns are staring down a crisis bigger than a trade request. And while Cleveland tries to stop the bleeding, Sanders is playing the situation perfectly. His calm professionalism in public, his refusal to lash out, only makes the organization look worse. Every move the Browns make feels reactive. Every headline makes them look desperate. But Sanders himself? He's not desperate at all. He's already looking ahead. And if reports are true, his family has already started preparing for life outside Cleveland. Amid all the chaos swirling around Cleveland, Sanders himself has stayed remarkably composed. To the public, he hasn't lashed out. He hasn't thrown his coaches under the bus. He hasn't even hinted at frustration in interviews. Instead, his message has come in quieter, more deliberate ways. His social media posts tell the story without spelling it out. Short captions about knowing your worth, cryptic lines about respect, loyalty, and staying true to yourself. To his followers, they look like motivational quotes. To those close to the situation, they read like farewell notes. Even his family has dropped hints. His father, Dean Sanders, posted a pointed message online. Real ones recognize real always. It was deleted quickly, but not before fans screenshot it and spread it everywhere.
For many, that was the closest thing to confirmation that Sanders' mind was already made up. Behind the scenes, insiders say he's been keeping meticulous notes on everything. The practices, the reps he was denied, the plays he executed that never made it into film review. It's the behavior of someone not just frustrated, but determined to control his own narrative. Sanders knows that when the story is told, he wants the facts and the receipts on his side.
What's striking is the way he's balanced professionalism with quiet defiance. At practices, he still shows up early, still does the drills, still supports teammates. But the respect is gone. He no longer plays the part of the eager rookie waiting for his shot. Instead, he carries himself like a man who knows his future lies elsewhere. And that calm exterior makes the Browns look even worse. Stefanski may avoid eye contact, may delegate instructions through assistants, but Sanders never rises to the bait. He doesn't need to. Every day he stays composed, the story tilts further in his favor. The Browns wanted to paint him as unready. Instead, he looks poised. They wanted to bury him on the depth chart. Instead, he's become the most talked about quarterback in the league. And as the spotlight grows, so does the sense that his time in Cleveland is already over. But if Sanders really is preparing to walk away, the next question is even bigger. What happens when he actually steps onto the field wearing another team's jersey? Because the possibility of him landing in New York isn't just about filling a roster spot. It could ignite one of the NFL's most dramatic storylines in years. Sanders' rift with the Browns is no longer just a Cleveland story. It's an NFL story. What started as a dispute over practice reps has evolved into a case study on how organizations can mishandle generational talent. And the ripple effects could extend far beyond one player or one franchise. For the Browns, the damage is already done. Even if Sanders stays, the trust is gone, the locker room fractured, and the fan base disillusioned. Once a quarterback feels the need to escape before his rookie season truly begins, the brand of stability Cleveland worked so hard to sell evaporates instantly. Free agents notice, draft prospects notice, rival executives notice. And around the league, every other team is watching with equal parts fascination and opportunism. General managers now have a fresh example of why culture matters as much as talent. You can draft the best player on the board, but if you can't create an environment where that player feels respected, supported, and developed, you're setting yourself up for disaster. The potential trade also threatens to redraw competitive lines. If Sanders really lands in New York, the Giants don't just get a quarterback, they get a symbol, a young, marketable superstar who could reshape their identity, energize their fan base, and elevate them into NFC contention. Suddenly, the conversation isn't about Daniel Jones's struggles or offensive stagnation. It's about a new era built on one player's arm and leadership. And meanwhile, Cleveland faces the exact opposite narrative. Another failed quarterback experiment, another wasted draft pick, another season defined by dysfunction. If Sanders goes on to thrive elsewhere, the Browns won't just lose games, they'll lose credibility for a generation. Every highlight he produces in another uniform will double as a reminder of what Cleveland fumbled. But beyond team reputations and roster moves, the Sanders saga forces bigger questions about the future of the NFL. Are we entering an age where rookie quarterbacks, like star veterans, can flex leverage and dictate their own paths? Is Sanders the first in a new wave of players who won't tolerate being buried by politics or outdated coaching philosophies? Because if this trend continues, the balance of power in the NFL could shift. Teams that cling to rigid hierarchies risk alienating their best talent. Teams that empower players and embrace innovation stand to reap massive rewards. Sanders' decision, as personal as it may seem, could be the warning shot that reshapes how organizations handle their most valuable assets moving forward.
This isn't just about Cleveland versus New York. This is about the NFL itself. About how the league adapts to a new era of empowered players, impatient fan bases, and unforgiving scrutiny. And right now, Sanders is the spark at the center of it all. At the heart of this saga is a truth the NFL has seen play out time and time again. Talent alone isn't enough. How a franchise manages that talent determines whether a player becomes a legend or a cautionary tale. And in the case of Sanders, Cleveland may have already written themselves into the wrong side of history. If Sanders walks, his story will echo names like Elway and Eli, quarterbacks who refuse to let franchises dictate their destinies. But unlike those cases, this isn't about draft day ultimatums. This is about an organization's failure to respect the very player it staked its future on. Sanders' legacy, even at this early stage, may come to symbolize the power of self-worth over blind loyalty. For the Browns, the lesson is brutal. Championships aren't won by systems, egos, or stubborn schemes. They're won by elevating talent and fostering trust. If a rookie has to fight his own coaches for a fair shot, the war is lost before the season even begins. Cleveland's mishandling of Sanders won't just haunt the current regime, it will serve as a reminder for years to come that when respect breaks, everything else follows. For Sanders, though, the legacy could be much brighter. Whether he lands in New York or elsewhere, this chapter proves he's more than just an athlete. He's a young man who recognized his value, refused to accept disrespect, and chose to carve his own path rather than let politics bury his career. That decision alone has already placed him in rare company. The NFL thrives on storylines, and Sanders may become one of the defining narratives of this era. The rookie who wouldn't stay silent, the quarterback who turned doubt into destiny, the player who forced the league to reconsider how it treats its future stars. And maybe that's the real lesson here. In a game driven by numbers, contracts, and wins, it's easy to forget the human side: respect, belief, opportunity. Sanders' journey reminds us that the measure of a franchise isn't just in the banners it hangs, but in how it treats the players who could one day hang them. Because years from now, when fans look back, the question won't just be whether Sanders became a star. It'll be whether the Browns squandered a legacy that was theirs to protect and handed it, gift-wrapped, to someone else. And so here we are, a quarterback who electrified training camp, shattered expectations, and captured the imagination of a restless fan base, now stands on the edge of leaving the very team that drafted him. Sanders didn't just reveal frustration, he revealed a decision that speaks to betrayal, to respect lost, and to futures rewritten before they even began. For Cleveland, this is more than a football problem. It's an identity crisis. A franchise already infamous for quarterback failures now finds itself poised to add yet another name to its graveyard, except this one stings more than all the rest, because this time they didn't just misjudge talent, they actively drove it away. For New York, the story is the opposite: opportunity, renewal, the possibility of turning the quarterback controversy in Cleveland into a franchise resurrection in the Meadowlands. If the Giants pull this off, it will go down as one of the boldest, most consequential trades in modern NFL history.
And for Sanders, his story is just beginning. Whether he walks into MetLife Stadium as the Giants' savior or lands elsewhere, one thing is clear: he refused to let his career be dictated by politics, pettiness, or outdated schemes. He chose control. He chose self-respect. He chose to gamble on his own greatness. The NFL thrives on moments like this: high drama, shattered loyalties, and the tantalizing promise of what comes next. Sanders' decision doesn't just change Cleveland. It doesn't just change New York. It changes the league. So, as the dust settles, the questions multiply. Will the Giants close the deal? Will Cleveland implode under the weight of another quarterback fiasco? Will Sanders prove right, not just in talent, but in conviction? What we know for certain is this: history is being written in real time, and whichever side you're on, whether Cleveland loyalist, Giants hopeful, or just a fan of football chaos, you're watching one of the most fascinating quarterback stories the league has ever seen. Because Sanders isn't just leaving Cleveland, he's rewriting the playbook on how rookies fight back, how talent demands respect, and how one decision can alter the future of franchises forever. This isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of something bigger. And we'll be here watching every step of the way.